as this praise won't get it on Sunday. Tired? Tired? Tired of the devil kicking our butts. That fool done broke loose. Bishop Bismarck said he was in prison.
God bless you. Thank you for tuning in to Doulos Chapel's monthly television show. I am Pastor Mario Sims. I'm the senior pastor of Doulos Chapel. We are non-denominational. Today we're going to get into I didn't want to use the word pressing. This is something that is so important to everyone here because everybody's been affected by the corruption. With me is my longtime friend, Dave Frank. And I've met Dave in 1974, 75.
Right in there.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And we also did Stand Up America.
Yes, we did.
In 1992.
Yeah.
It was heard in 13 states,
Yep.
Boulder, Colorado, to Trenton, New Jersey.
Yeah.
In fact, we did the 11 o'clock hour and we led into Rush Limbaugh.
That's right.
So we've got a little bit of history here. I normally don't wear my Marine Corps veteran hat, but as an American veteran, I want to kind of emphasize the reason I'm sitting here next to Dave. I've already talked to Dave. I want to take about 5 minutes. The topic of the show is solving political corruption. Dave has a solution. I want to set it up for him. So if I can, I want to start out with scripture, since this is a Christian television program, and God established government, all government. We know in 1 Samuel, I think chapter 8, Samuel came to God and said, during the formation of the nation of Israel, he said the people want a king, and he said, and God said, well, give them a king, but warn them. When you give them a king, this is what's going to happen. Taxation and oppressive rulings and that type of thing. So we know government is from God, and that's Old Testament. God established it or allowed it to be established. In Romans 13 in the New Testament, the writings of Paul show that government, all elected officials are supposed to be ministers of justice. Well, if you look at locally here, that's laughable. It's laughable. You look at and we'll talk about some of the oppressive corrupt. We talked about smart streets, which certainly it didn't make things better for you or for me.
No, I don't think they're very smart.
Well, but it generated hundreds of millions of dollars. I was told that Pete Buttigieg had access to $1.7 billion in public works contract, and of course this was all handed out to
political cronies.
Well, who in turn would funnel money back in. He was known as one of the biggest fundraisers doing his presidential run, and that's why he ended up getting appointed as the Department of Transportation. Giving away money that's been donated to you to contractors, and many times, in fact, 100% no-bid contracts, is against our Constitution, okay? And I want to talk about, that's just one area. We see schools now that have a larger budget than the city of South Bend are rated F by the state. We know that we literally have crooks and thieves that are making decisions in the city council. And I'm not being judgmental. If you look at Sharon McBride, this is well published. She's the president of the city council. She lost her day job after years of malfeasance. She made her mother, who was the cook, the fifth, depending on what statistic you see, either the 5th or the 15th highest elected official in the county, okay, and was terminated from that job for malfeasance. Yet she's still the president of the city council. That's like taking somebody who robbed the bank and now you make them the president of the bank. She now went from running Dukem Center as the executive rep, which had a much smaller budget than the city council. Now she's the president of the city council. The city budget is in excess of $500 million.
It's huge.
Well, and so she joins with the other 8 council people in ruling. We know Sheila Nizgotsky, who her and her husband own a plumbing company, and I know this from Jesse Davis, who has a plumbing company. Sheila voted on $600,000 in no-bid plumbing contracts that was swung to her and her husband, State Senator David Nizgotsky's plumbing company, and aced Jesse Davis out. So on and on and on and on, we see this culture of corruption taking our tax dollars and using it not in a way to benefit the public, but to benefit them.
Right.
So last week I was reading something that Ben Franklin, and I used to say this a lot. After the Continental Congress in Philadelphia, Ben Franklin came out and someone asked him, Dr. Franklin, what did you guys decide on? And he said, the famous words was, a republic if you can keep it.
If you can keep it.
So I dug deeper and I determined, because a lot of people get confused, is it a republic, is it a democracy? Here's the key. Locally, our government was meant to be, and I want you folks to listen to me very carefully, locally, our government was meant to be a republic. What does that mean? It means you, and we have 3 cameras here, okay? So I'm going to point to all 3.
There you go.
You, the American citizen,
That's
the
right.
taxpayer, was supposed to decide on where your money should go. According to the Constitution, we are locally a constitutional republic, which means that we, the taxpayers, decide by initiative or referendum. Look it up. This is not something I create. This is the backbone of our American system of government, that locally, what the city council should be doing was holding initiatives and referendums. You want to increase, you want to have smart streets. This should be a decision made by the mayor and then rubber stamped by the city council. With the exception, I think, of Oliver Davis, all of the current city council people receive money from James Mueller to win re-election, which means they're not beholden to you, they're beholden to the mayor.
That's right.
And they're not going to be watchdogs of your money, because now they've taken the mayor's money, not from you. They got re-elected or elected based on the mayor's money. And I can't remember, you remember the last initiative or the last referendum, is if you can kind of, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, I really, was that for schools?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I've been an activist since we talked, since
Yeah.
at least late 80s.
Yeah, they run these referendums through, and sometimes people that vote on them really don't even understand what they're all about.
Has there been a recent
I think
referendum in the last
there
few years?
has, but really when you think about all of the taxes that we pay, and we're now paying about 60% of our income in taxes, all of those promises, every time a tax was raised, they said, well, this is going for the potholes, or this
I
is
remember
going
wheel tax. That's what it
wheel
was
tax.
supposed-
This
right,
is going
exactly.
for education. This is going to clean up the sewer system. And the problem is most of that tax money did not go where they said it was going to go. Yeah.
I'm shocked.
But this is what happens when you give a very small group of people the ability to make the rules and collect the tax money and spend the tax money. After a while, nepotism's going to step in, which it's been in South Bend forever.
Insider dealing.
Insider dealing.
yeah.
And
No bid contracts. Contracts that I know from coming up in Chicago, there's always a big thing about transparency, and the contracts will be posted and discussed, and they allow, and corrupt as Chicago is, they allow contractors to bid on contracts. These are just shoved down people's throat.
Yeah.
Our church, Doulos Chapel, has housed over 200 people since my wife and I founded the church. We've never got a penny from city government, and never asked the city government. Whenever opportunities came up early for us to bid on grants, we thought, oh yeah, we're trying to help the city and house the homeless. We were always frozen out by the Center for the Homeless or the other connected organization. Center for the Homeless, of course, was started by Notre Dame.
Right.
They're good at starting things, and this is a $24 billion and one of the largest endowments in the world.
Yeah.
But the funding for the homeless programs end up on our backs.
Right.
On our backs, and so. So we just gave up applying for grants after a while. It was obvious that the Center for the Homeless and Hope Rescue, and as of late, Motels for Now, which is staffed by the Catholic workers and Our Lady of the Roads people, who are affiliated with Notre Dame. And you wonder, why are they getting millions of dollars from the city when they're affiliated with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame has a $24 billion endowment, and by the way, plenty of land to build homeless shelters on.
Yeah.
But we end up with Motels for Now getting over $1 million to buy an old hotel out on Lincoln Way West by the airport, and then paid more money to staff it. And now they're looking at getting more money to buy more land to build a new facility, when the one on Lincoln Way West has been responsible for shutting McDonald's down. How do you shut a McDonald's?
That's tough.
Because McDonald's customers got tired of the unhoused people coming in and threatening them and that kind of stuff. What I'm saying, Dave, is it ain't working.
No, it's not working. It's not working, and you and I have been around long enough where we remember living in a world before taxation was 60%. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of interesting that as they've kept creeping out these taxes up on us, and the next thing we wake up and we're trying to live on 40 cents on the dollar, and then they scratch their heads and go, gee, why are families falling apart? And how come the parents aren't home with the kids? Well, they're trying to live on 40 cents on the dollar, so they have to work 50, 60 hours a week. And things are not working. And we're giving these political people all this tax money. The schools are failing. The infrastructure is failing. Poverty is everywhere. Crime is out of control. Homelessness. I remember when a former mayor came here, and his plan was to knock down 1,000 houses in 1,000 days. Yeah. And he refused to talk to me. I'm proud of the fact that I won the Dr. Martin Luther King Award here in our community. And I kept trying to get to him, but for 8 years he refused to talk to me. But he went ahead and he knocked down 1,000 houses in 1,000 days, as opposed to, how about knocking the taxes off of those properties so the landlords can rent them out and fix them up, or people can buy them and fix them up? No, they just knocked them all down, 1,000 houses, and the next thing we have an epidemic of homelessness.
Yeah, which of course plays into their plan, because 40% of the city budget goes to not-for-profits.
There you go.
Now, so essentially you're building a patronage army.
That's right.
People got their hands out. Hey, well, house the homeless, give us a couple million. So instead of my wife and I buying a church and paying out of our pocket to staff our efforts to house or get donations from other people, you have the Catholic workers and Our Lady of the Roads people going to the city and says, hey, we want to house the homeless. This is a great deal. We have an idea to house the homeless. Okay, great. Okay, give us money to buy a building and give us money to pay a staff. Yeah, well, see, when we got our church, we bought our church and we staffed it ourselves, and the funding, our electric bills, we have 5 electric furnaces. The church is 50,000 square feet. Sometimes our electric bills in the winter would be $1,600, $1,700.
Wow.
And the city didn't contribute 1 penny to that, but they'll give millions to the Catholic workers, Our Lady of the Roads people, who are affiliated with a $24 billion endowment. So our tax money is going to support, and this is going to anger some people, University of Notre Dame, but the reality is that's because most of the judges and lawyers graduate from the University of Notre Dame.
Right.
There's a big presence here. But again, why don't we just sell the city to Notre Dame? We'd probably be better off.
Well, yeah. What we're doing is not working. This is not working.
It's not a representative government.
No, it's not. The people watching this show, they don't have a voice. I'm 75 years old now. I've never been asked my opinion on any issue.
In fact,
I have no
if you
representation.
go to the city council, you get 3 minutes.
Yeah, you
and
get 3 minutes.
if they don't like what you're saying during that 3 minutes, they'll interrupt you.
That's right.
3
that's
minutes.
Right. And they don't represent the people in our community. But the exciting thing about it, Reverend Sims, is God has dropped this amazing communication technology
You have an answer.
into our laps.
Folks, here's the thing. Here's the reason that Dave and I had dinner last week, and I want to just say this. I've been in meetings with Dave, and he's proposed this, and he always says, as we talk for 10 minutes about the problem, Dave will always say, I have a solution. And he does. In fact, the title of our show, I got to read it, is Solving Political Corruption. Tell us your solution, Dave.
Well,
we know the problem. What's the solution?
The solution is the technology that we now have all around us. Mm-hmm. You know, back in the 1700s when this country started, they didn't know what a television was. They didn't know what a touch-tone phone was. They didn't know what a computer was. They didn't have any of this stuff.
So you went to the hardware store. Word got out around town. They probably cranked out a poster, nailed it on some post, and meet us
after
at
a printing press.
Yeah, meet us around the old iron stove at the hardware store at 4 on Saturday. We got to talk about an issue.
Yeah.
And then so you got there, and everybody here is Bob from the far,
Yeah.
So everybody's there.
Yeah.
And then here's the deal. We need to raise money to whatever with our road or something.
Yeah, well, it worked a little bit like that back then because the communities were smaller.
Right.
Everybody knew each other.
Right.
You knew your neighbor.
Right.
You didn't have to work.
But people had a chance to participate. Their vote counted.
Yeah, and the founders told us in the Declaration of Independence that it's not only our right, but it's our duty to change the system, just like they had, because our founders felt as though they didn't have a voice in America, so they came up with this Constitution. Actually, what they did was they used politicians as electrical impulses, and those politicians were supposed to get on horseback and ride back and forth from Washington or state capitals or downtown into the fields where we were working and talk to us and get a general consensus of what we wanted, and then they were supposed to ride back. Well, obviously, it got shorted out with crime, bribery, and all that.
Well, money gets involved. And I want to make this clear. The American government, or the American Constitution, is actually two parts. It is actually a republic locally, where you are to decide on through local initiatives and referendums. I want to make this clear to you. What Dave is talking about is constitutional. What he's saying is to take your cell phone, okay, and
you can 10 people can borrow the same phone. It doesn't matter.
Let's say that
you're going to vote with this.
Buttigieg decides that he wants to have smart streets.
Yeah.
So there is mechanically, then he does a presentation on public access. Correct?
Well, it'll be public broadcasting.
Public broadcast, whatever.
Let me give you a little history before we go too far. The American people own a broadcasting station. This is a very well-kept secret. They don't want you to know this, but the American people own a broadcasting station. It's networked all across the country. In fact, right now we are sitting in our local broadcasting station that started back in 1969. The American people were very excited about this because they thought, public broadcasting, that means they're going to broadcast the public. Well, the last thing that the political people want, because they want to keep control of that tax money so they can keep playing their laundering games with their political cronies, but the last thing they want is the American people to have a voice. So what the government started doing was funding public broadcasting to make sure it's not used to broadcast the public. I mean, right now we are being broadcasted, but this is public access, not public broadcasting. So what we're saying is we want to use our local public broadcasting facilities as our new local issues TV, radio, and internet channel. so that when people in our community have an idea to make education better, environment better, taxation, healthcare, whatever it is, if you have an idea to make our community better, you'll present it over the TV, we'll simulcast it over the radio and live stream it over the internet so everybody has an opportunity to see it. We'll present it to the community over today's communication technology. We'll debate this idea because you want to hear the pros and the cons of whatever issue you're considering voting on.
Right.
And after you hear these pros and cons and you make up your mind, this is your new voting device. And all you'll do, just like you vote on American Idol, Dancing with the Stars, CNN, Fox, all you'll do is you'll call a local number. It'll go into a community database. It will have your ID number and PIN number, just like you're calling your bank or your credit card company or whoever. All these corporations use it. It'll ask you for your ID number and PIN number. It'll ask you what issue number you'd like to vote on, like the Smart Street issue, for example. Say it's 007, you'll punch that in. And then you'll vote either yes or no. You'll punch 1 for yes, 2 for no. It will count your vote. It will block you out if you try and vote again. And as this issue is going through this system, it goes through over a 10-day period, there'll be an updated tally of the yeses and the nos so that the community is educated on how this is going. Right. You know, if you haven't voted, you might want to vote if you have a certain feeling on it. And then at the end of 10 days, not only will we, the people, understand this issue in its entirety, but it will come from we, the people.
Right.
And we become the owners of our community again. 9 people on a city council are not the owners of a community that's being built by 100,000 people.
Right.
And what this does, it will give those 9 people the information that they need so that they can make an educated decision as to how their constituents feel. And let's say 100,000, let's say 80,000 people ended up voting on it, and 70,000 people said no, 10,000 people said yes. The answer is no. We just saved $60 million on smart streets that the police absolutely hate, by the way. And most people I know hate smart streets too. I don't know why they call them smart streets. But that's it. If you have an idea to make education better, whatever it is, you'll be able to present your idea right to the community over the TV, radio, and internet. We have some of the finest minds in the world in our community, and we are not hearing from those people. This is the communication tool that we need in our community. And all we're saying is, instead of watching Antique Roadshow over public broadcasting, and some of you may like it, you'll still be able to get it on a different station, cartoons, 60s music, America is blowing up as we speak. Yeah. I hope the people watching this show realize this. People are very frustrated. They have no voice. Now they're protesting, they're violent, they're tired of participating in a rigged voting system. And we know it's rigged. It's more information's coming out every day. So this is using God's amazing, miraculous communication technology to give every one of us in our community a voice.
2 quick statistics, and that's why I went to my phone. I posted something on my Facebook page today. 6 corporations own 90% of news media. News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, CBS, and Comcast own 90%. The TV stations, radio stations, movies, magazines, and newspapers that 277 million Americans rely on for news and entertainment. Now, I mean, think about that. So these mega corporations obviously have a lot of money, and
they're controlling.
Well, but
what we see.
Well, who do they use that millions to put people in office that they want in office to pass legislation that's favorable to us?
Absolutely.
So the mainstream media is controlled, and that's a fact. But I also want to say that because there's 2 tiers here of understanding. Locally, it's a republic. Nationally, it's a democracy. So we have 435 people up in Washington that now that we decide locally something through this system, then all eyes now go to Washington and to our elected officials there, who are supposed to, decide what's based on the good of the people.
They're supposed to be representing what we the people want.
90%, if 90% of the media, newspapers, radio, and television, and internet is owned by these corporations, they generate billions. And if you're a politician, you certainly want some of that money to run your campaign.
That's right. And they will tell you what to vote, how to vote. Exactly. And it's sort of interesting, too. I've always thought, God's always telling us things. We just have to pay attention. Right. And we now realize that, just like you said, these corporations are bribing these politicians to do so.
Many of them retire millionaires. That's not how they got to the Senate and the Congress. I mean, that's in itself a problem.
The decisions that the politicians are making are helping the corporations. They are not helping we the people. Right. And like I said, God's trying to tell us something. If you look at the abbreviation for corporations, it's CORPS. The only thing that's missing is the silent E. Yeah. Corpse. Death is now running America.
Of course.
And that's not the way it was supposed to be. Yeah. Those corporations are not we the people. We the people are the people that are funding everything that happens in America.
Well, Dave, I was a paralegal up until the time I retired for a number of lawyers for 17 years. And one of the things that was driven home to me, you can have the most ironclad contract, and there are people who find a way to either not honor it or pervert it. That's happened to our Constitution. They will hold up the Constitution and say, it's our Constitution. And me, as a Marine Corps veteran, I had people I served with that died, believing in this country. And that's why I just get so angry that you have these politicians that have ignored the sacrifice of many of your sons and daughters to ensure we have a republic and a democracy, only to profit them.
And it's gotten so bad that it's really not a democracy or a republic anymore. It is now organized crime. Organized crime is top-down system where all the money goes to the top and the Godfather decides where it's all going, whether it's the mafia or any other organized crime. And what we really have here now is a multi-level marketing pyramid scam where we're sending money to Washington, we send it to Indianapolis, we send it downtown, and we're going, hey, where's the money? And by doing this, it has sucked the money out of our communities. Sure. There's no money left in our communities. The wealthy people have it. I would bet that 70% of the people in our community probably do not have $1,000.
Yeah.
And it's because there's no money left. It's being sucked to Indianapolis, it's being sucked into Washington, and they've really sucked our communities dry. And we need money so we can barter with one another. That's how we barter. We trade money for labor or a product, and we need our money back in our community. We now realize, unless you're living under a mushroom, that Washington, D.C., those 545 people are probably financially the most irresponsible people that have ever lived. They have us we'll call it 35 trillion in debt that they put on our credit card. That doesn't even include all the money that we sent them. This is on top of that. And for those of you who do not know what $35 trillion is, it's 35 million. It's a number that doesn't even exist. And this has basically happened since 1980 for the most part. It's exploded. And we can't do this anymore. And we don't want a revolution because a revolution is one complete turn, and that is where we're at now. We had a violent revolution back in the 1700s, and we don't want a violent revolution again. What we want is an evolution where the people, the adults in our community evolve into adulthood. And when you're an adult, you make decisions, you live with those decisions, and you reproduce. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people are reproducing like crazy, but they aren't making decisions. And what God has given us is the technology now. He's dropped this into our laps. And I mean, this is nothing short of miraculous as far as I'm concerned. I can talk to my daughter in Florida right now. I can tell you exactly how many miles and how long it would take to get there. This is miraculous. And for us to believe that we cannot vote by phone anymore is totally stupid.
Well, and I want to.
And we can. And we have to.
I want to make sure they understand. We're not talking about electing people into office into office. We're talking about voting on issues. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Because people are like, "Well, you do that."
But we could vote on politicians too. The reason the politicians don't like this idea is because they're afraid that somebody's going to raise the issue like, hey, we just had 80,000 people vote. Why are we going to leave the final decision up to 5 people out of 9? And that's a very good question. And I can't think of a reason why we should leave it to those 5 people out of 9. And it will get better and better and better.
The idea of a local initiative, and we'll use again smart streets, is not for a mayor, any mayor, whether it's Buttigieg, Mueller, whoever, to say, okay, I'm going to allocate $1.7 billion for smart streets. You have a city council that at best 4 may be independent of the mayor's control. Now, with the exception of Oliver Davis, just about all the other city council people, some of them didn't even raise their own money to run reelected. All their funding came from the mayor. So obviously they're bought and paid for, and they're going to be beholden to him. But my point is, you have a smart street, as for example. We use your process, and those who are eligible to vote, vote it down. It's dead. It can't now be.
And our representatives have the figures that they need so that they can make an educated
and just
decision.
say, hey, we can't. The people don't want this, and that's it.
Right.
But I want to add, this is how, and this is when I was talking about being a paralegal and seeing contracts that have been not honored or perverted. What has happened, if you look at the last city election last November, you'll see that 85% of the people that could vote, of voting age, didn't vote. Right. Only 15% of those people voted. Think about that, brothers and sisters. Only 15% of those people who could vote did vote because they're so turned off. They feel hopeless and helpless, and they feel their vote doesn't count. So what happens is, you take, let's say, 5,000, 6,000 city workers, and you add in their relatives.
And they're going to vote.
Okay, and they're going to vote for self-preservation.
Make sure that paycheck keeps coming in.
Exactly. And so that's what's going on now. And that's why
the system is voting for itself.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And this would change that.
Yeah, and their whole goal is to control our tax money. I mean, that's the bottom line.
We need to make this clear. Folks, local government, the only source of revenue is tax money. Mm-hmm. That's the only source of revenue.
Yeah.
We
fund everything in America. We fund everything.
I had a conversation with David Horvath, who's over the Department of Public Works, and I was pointing out to him that, because somebody had pointed out, people don't know, you ought to look into how much money the Department of Public Works generates through the water bills. I mean, they're charging for water, okay? Right. And I saw a commercial that said, air and water is free. No, not if you live here.
Oh, yeah.
Now, fortunately, we live out in the county, so we don't pay for water.
Right.
They haven't figured out a way to tax us on that.
Taxing God's water.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But I remember David Horvath saying, well, we don't make money off of, we don't use the tax money. Well, 100% of what you earn is tax money, dude. What are you talking about? Well, I mean,
we fund everything that happens in America, and we have no voice. You know what that is? Yeah. That's called a slave.
Yeah.
That's what the plantations had.
Well, if you
do the work, we'll take all the benefit from it, and you do the work. And look,
that's what made the founding fathers rebel.
That's
no
right.
taxation. I mean,
2%,
taxation
2%,
without representation.
2%, and we got 60%.
That's why the T went over the side.
That's right. That's right. But the exciting thing about this is that we can do this. We have the technology. God has given us this amazing technology. Unfortunately, it's being used on us.
Yeah.
They're using it to program us as a society. Put on the mask, get the shot.
Yeah.
Don't talk to your
While the pharmaceuticals make record
Oh, my
profits,
God, yeah.
record profits,
Right,
okay? They
right.
have a license to steal.
And there's so many people that are having so many bad results from those shots.
I'll tell you something that a lot of people don't know. Being a paralegal, I have to look at case law. I remember years ago looking at a case law, and you can look it up. It was the FDA versus the tobacco manufacturers, okay? And what's interesting about it is this. The FDA was supposed to monitor tobacco producing companies. Oh, the FDA versus Williamsburg Tobacco. If you have a chance, it's about 100 pages, but this will shock you. So the FDA sued the tobacco companies because the FDA, it's Federal Drug Administration, what goes into tobacco, right? Okay, tobacco, nicotine, right? Nicotine, right? Well, documents were released in that case that showed that only 7% of the people who wanted to stop smoking cigarettes could, because the tobacco manufacturers were injecting higher amounts of nicotine so you couldn't quit. It would addict you. Yeah. Now, this should be regulated by the FDA. Yeah. Well, who stopped it? The tobacco producing senators from like Kentucky and Virginia and West Virginia. Why? Because of the money that the tobacco producers were paying to the senators. So tobacco was never regulated by the FDA. That's just one example
and these
of the
are
corruption.
all issues that affect people in our community that could be raised, debated, voted on, and taken care of. We have to grow up and stop expecting politicians. Another thing God's telling us, and we aren't paying attention, the word politics. Poly means many, ticks are bloodsuckers. That's exactly what they are. I mean, that's all they do. They pass laws, and then they receive our money, and then they give our money to the corporations. Well, so they give the donations.
You know what your idea, which is constitutional, all you're doing is taking the old hardware store, and now it's here.
That's right.
Instead of everybody getting together, let's go to the hardware store, let's get around the potbelly stove, and let's vote on this initiative or referendum.
Absolutely.
Now you're at home. Well, I want to vote no for smart streets.
That's right.
I'm at home, and it's 10,000, 50,000 votes against 200, and so the referendum doesn't pass. Okay, that's how that should work.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that is so troubling to me. None of this would be needed if we had integrity in the elected officials. Yeah. But they make rules and laws.
Absolute power corrupts.
That benefit them.
Yeah.
The prosecutor locally is an elected official. He will selectively decide who to prosecute. You know, we made a point of showing that Tim Corbett had admitted to a reporter, a mainstream reporter, that he planted evidence, in my case to wrongfully convict me. And then when she went public, he threatened her life.
Yeah.
Well, he still carries a badge.
Yeah.
Because the politicians won't say, this. But if you did it, try threatening a reporter's life.
Absolutely.
Do you see what I'm saying?
But our system has regressed to of the lawyers, by the lawyers, and for the lawyers. Well, if you look at all the people that write all the bills that are turned into
the majority
they're all
of
lawyers.
The legislature?
They're all lawyers. And here's another important thing that I'd like to share with your audience. I think it's very important. I can do this because I'm older and I remember. You know, when I was growing up, in schools, they had the 10 Commandments. I remember sitting there reading them. Don't lie about people. Don't adultery, stealing, killing, resting one day a week.
Have no other God than me, and of course their God is money.
There you go. That's right. So, but this is what happened, and it's very important. Back in right around 1960, before 1960, America used to be closed down one day a week. We were actually abiding by you're supposed to rest one day a week, and the day that the country picked was on Sunday. and everything was closed on Sunday.
Well, you couldn't buy a car. And you
Couldn't buy anything.
I remember that.
You couldn't
the
buy
blue laws, I think they were
That's
called.
right. Now, everything was closed. Families came together like clockwork. It was very good for the planet because I'm telling you, nobody was driving cars. I mean, I used to play football on Portage. You could go long forever, man. And it was great. It was absolutely wonderful. And then 9 lawyers on the Supreme Court decided that God was wrong. And they said, well, that's church and state. Well, if you read the 10 Commandments, it doesn't say anything about religion whatsoever. Right. And so they said, well, we've got to throw those 10 Commandments out. And they took them off of municipal properties, and they took them out of schools. In fact, I would venture to say if you walked up to 10 people right now and said, can you tell me what the 10 morals are that God commanded us to follow? They couldn't because they were thrown out. And ever since then, we have been becoming an immoral country. And Vietnam rolled around right after that, and we started killing, and we've been killing ever since.
Well,
Lying
that's
is
because
fine.
Wars are profitable. We talked about that before. We talked about Jekyll Island in 1913, how the Fed Reserve was created as a quasi-private bank that 12, I think, families, the Rothschilds and others were control.
It's a financial scam. Money is a financial scam.
Because they lend to the government.
Yeah, but we don't
compound
need
interest.
Because of God, we really don't need their worthless pieces of paper any longer.
But here's the thing, Dave. Think about it. You talked about the 9 Supreme Court justices. You talk about the local mayor, every city council member. All of them claim to be Christians. It's laughable.
It is laughable.
It's laughable.
But power corrupts. And people ask me about this, and this is the example that I give. They say, what happens to a person after they win an election? And I said, let me explain it to you this way. I said, you have a toaster on your counter. They say, yes, I do. And I say, that toaster was wired for 110 watts or volts of power. I said, you know what happens when you put a 220 into that toaster? It has too much power. It no longer functions. And that's what's wrong. We, the people, need to be empowered. We don't need powerful people running our lives. We need to evolve. We need to be empowered. And, Martin Luther King, back in the 60s, all we could do is vote for people. But we don't need to be judging people any longer. We need to grow up and start judging issues, environmental issues. When I was growing up, my mother and my aunt were very active in the PTA. They were over at Marquette School all the time, raising, debating, voting on issues to make that school better. And then all of a sudden they decided downtown, well, we're going to give that job to the school board and the superintendent, who now makes over $200,000 a year.
Chief financial officer of the South Bend School Corporation, when she was hired into that position, didn't even have a CPA, probably didn't even have 8 hours of accounting.
Didn't they start her at like $135,000?
Yeah. But I mean, the result is a larger budget than the city has.
Yeah.
And the city has a $500 million budget. The school corporation is larger. And the states have rated the school, not Dave, not Pastor Mario, the states have rated, the state of Indiana has rated South Bend School with an F rating.
Yeah. Terrific. And we're giving a school superintendent over $200,000. Yeah. And the administrators, back when my wife was a para, I think the average wage was over 80, almost 90,000. I don't know what it is now, for failing schools.
Yeah.
This is not working, and that's why we need the input of the teachers and the parents back into our education system so that they can raise, debate, and vote on education issues. It's so simple. And the exciting thing about it is if you're blind, you can participate. If you're deaf, if you're quadriplegic, even if you can't speak English, everybody can participate. That's what God has given us this amazing technology for. Let me give the website.
Sure, go ahead.
The blueprint that we need to start raising, debating, and voting on issues in our community, it's on our website. It's called onevoicenow.org, O-N-E voicenow.org, O-N-E voicenow.org. It shows how simply If you have an idea to make our community better, you'll be able to present it. We'll get it debated, videotape that debate, present that over the TV, radio, and internet. And anybody that's interested in that issue will be able to vote with any touch-tone phone into a computer database, ask you for your ID number and PIN number, what issue number you want to vote on, press 1 for yes, 2 for no, you voted, you feel good, and you can see your issue go right through the system, and we can start fixing America community by community, one issue at a time, the same way it was built, one issue at a time. We've got to get rid of some of these unfair taxes very quickly and let these families start coming back together.
All the government does is just waste our tax money.
That's all they do.
You know, they'll say, for example, the wheel tax. Oh, we're going to raise it, and you look at the potholes.
Oh, they're terrible.
So obviously, the money didn't go to repairing the potholes.
And we had 5,000 signatures against the wheel tax, and they wouldn't even look at them. They don't care what we think, and we have to use this technology so we don't care what they think.
It's supposed to be a republic, Dave. It's not.
No.
See, the power has been taken out of the hands of the people, and the elected officials, those who are supposed to, that are supposed to represent us, represent other interests, including their own interests.
Right. This is where everything got backwards. See, and constitutionally, those people are called representatives, and the reason is they're supposed to do what we want.
Right.
But instead, somehow they got changed the name to leaders. They're
they're
not
rulers.
leaders.
They're basically
they're
rulers
right.
now.
But the way the system was supposed to work is those politicians were supposed to come and ask us.
They're supposed to be servants of the people.
Right. They're
Remember, the
public
Bible
servants.
in Romans 13 calls them ministers of justice. They're supposed to serve the people, realizing that God is watching them. They don't care.
They don't care. I call them Judases.
Yeah. Let me tell you two things that I know you remember, and folks, you may or may not be old enough to remember, but the Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame. I mean, that was so and it sits like a silent testimony to us, the handful of us that were berated for remonstrating.
Yeah.
And I remember doing on WVPE, I debated with Joe Kernan, and my point was, you're spending $11 million, and how many people is it going to employ? And Joe, and I still got it on tape, 2 people. I go, Joe, 11 million in 2 people? And then, I mean, we could use that money to try and get other businesses to come into the city of South Bend and employ more people.
But it wasn't supposed to cost a dime.
It wasn't
going to cost a dime. You know how much it ended up costing?
Well, it's costing every month.
$50 million was the bottom line.
Yeah, and
it wasn't.
It's
that's
still
how it was
sitting
sold.
there
Not going to cost
vacant.
a dime.
And he said, and I have it on cassette tape from WVP, it's not going to cost 1 thin dime. That's what he said.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're lying.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
but how does a governor buy a ballpark? You know what I'm saying? That's how we got, remember the ballpark, the Kovaleski, you know, and the Silverhawks, that's how that got here.
And that's when he was asking for $10 million for the ballpark. And nobody knew that he was in the process of selling it. In fact, he came on TV and he said, this is just to let you know that the ball team's not going anywhere, which made people think, oh, well, you know, okay, he's going to be here. The money's going to go to him. And as soon as they allocated that $10 million, the new owner had $10 million sitting in a checking account waiting for him. And Kernan sold that ball team.
Yeah, and the new owner is now expanding, gentrifying. Thank you very much. Your tax money is allowing the new owner, because they just gave him a tremendous tax incentive from downstate. And of course, the South Bend Housing Authority has helped by allowing employees to steal millions of dollars that were supposed to go in the maintenance in the 628 building, which is sitting here vacant because the money was stolen. And instead of renovating this building now and using it for low income and senior citizens, it sits vacant. You know what's going to happen. It's in proximity to the ballpark. It's going to be sold to the ballpark. Taxpayer money was stolen. And here's the thing. The same board of directors that was asleep at the wheel that allowed the workers to steal the millions of dollars that was supposed to go into maintenance are still on the board of directors.
Yeah.
What kind of craziness
it's all
is this?
political games. It's just all
At our expense.
At our
Dave.
yeah, we're the slaves. They tap into our paychecks, and when we pump gas, when we drive
Well,
through.
your income is taxed, your check.
Yep.
And I remember when you owned Dave's restaurant,
Frank's Red
Frank's
Hot.
restaurant, Frank's, which was great hot dog. incident. But I remember I went there one day and you were talking about your payroll taxes, how they were just
Terrible.
like,
I can't even imagine how small business makes it today. In fact, they aren't, and that's why we need this plan to give the small business owners a voice, and so that they can start surviving. America was built by small business.
Of course.
And
there were no mega corporations
no.
when America was
And
founded.
when you graduated from high school, if you didn't go to college, you usually went to work for a small business. Yeah. And that guy that hired you, he knew you. Yeah. He cared about you. He paid you better. And then all of a sudden they started wrecking small business, taxing the heck out of it, like I experienced with my restaurant. And these small businesses are failing one right after the other. But we can turn it around.
What did COVID do? Shut it down. Well, you're not shutting down the law. You're not shutting down these big
expenses.
businesses.
Yeah. The expenses keep on going.
Well, but if you remember during COVID, that period of time when no one could leave their house, and you got these small businesses died. Yeah. Many of the restaurants couldn't come back after that.
But they did care about our health. That's why they said we could only drive through McDonald's.
Yeah.
They really cared about our health.
Sure.
And the bottom line is, hopefully the people watching this broadcast are going to realize that nobody cares about you and your community more than you do.
Well, yeah, but unfortunately, the concept of the republic has been lost on politicians because they're now the rulers who don't want to hear from you. They want your money. And you could lose your house if you don't pay your property taxes.
You better believe that.
Okay? They want your money. And you won't be able to drive on the streets if you don't buy license plates and pay sales tax on that.
Yep.
But try and go to the city council or county council.
They don't want to hear your voice.
You know, you got 3 minutes, or it's over. And I know Carl Baxmeyer had a proposal to eliminate the 3 minutes in front of the commissioner. Yeah. It's like, what's the point of us listening to you?
Well, look, they're never going to come up with a plan to hear our voices. That's up to us. It was up to the founders.
But it was the Constitution, Dave. That's what folks, that's how crazy this is, that what's happening is all of this stuff has happened. You talk about environmental issues. The environmental issues is not caused by you or I. It's caused by large corporations that have polluted our rivers.
That's right.
Polluted our air.
And once we have a voice in our communities, we can clean up our air. We can clean up our water. We can make sure the streets are safe.
But you take the profit out for the rulers.
That's right. That's what it is, profit.
So you take the profit out, which is called corruption, and we have what was intended, a republic.
Yeah. Well, here's one. The electric company and the gas company. We all need it, okay? It's mandatory. You got to have gas and electric or both. Those two CEOs make a combined income of $25 million. That means we're all overpaying. You know, we're working our butts off to keep our families or ourselves secure with heat and electric. And we're all overpaying so a couple greedy people can, but that's the corporation. See, they aren't really doing it, it's the corporation. And the thing is we don't need a country that's run by corporations. We need a country that's run by we the people.
Right. We got 5 minutes left, so make sure I want this to be concise and to the point. I want to recap. I said that in 1 Samuel 8, I believe, Samuel came to God because Israel at that point didn't have a king. And so Samuel came to God and said, the people are grumbling. They want to be like the other tribes. You know, they want a king, which is a government. And Samuel said, I've failed you. And God said, no, you know, they don't understand that initially government was meant to be by God, that every man was governed by God. That was the initial intent. Well, that didn't work, okay? I mean, because man
well,
is going to...
If they listen to the 10, if they live by the 10 commanded morals.
That was perverted, though.
Yeah, it was,
okay. Yeah,
right.
you know what I'm saying? Why do we
Right.
have to live? Why, you
Right.
know? And then it's like, you know, Satan. Did God really say? You know,
Right.
he didn't really mean that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So okay. So God established government. He told you, when I do this, you're going to be taxed out of existence. You're going to, you know, draft your sons and daughters and blah blah blah. Okay. So then here comes man. You know, the Quakers, the Pilgrims. They come over from England. We don't want to be oppressed anymore. We're going to create this republic and local republic, so the people will have a say in government. And money got involved in
Corruption.
corruption.
Yeah, let me make a
You got
a
3
point.
minutes.
Jesus said there will be a day
Yeah.
where the last will be first and the first will be last. That's what One Voice Now is. That's the name of the plan. It's One Voice Now, and it does exactly as it says. It gives everyone one voice right now. And instead of 9 people on a city council telling 100,000 people the way things are going to be, 100,000 people are going to tell 9 people on the city council the way things are going to be. That's what One Voice Now can do for our community. It can be done very quickly, but the problem is Mario and I wanting this is not going to get it done. It's going to take a lot of people to stand up with us and say, we want to change the format of our local public broadcasting facility that we own. We own this. They don't pay taxes here, I don't believe.
Right.
And the other thing that we have to do is we have to bring back God's 10 morals that he commanded us to follow. Jesus said, I didn't come to change the laws. He said, I came to fulfill the laws. Those laws are still there, and they're waiting for us to get smart and live by them and do unto others.
Yeah.
But if we don't know those 10 morals, we don't know how to live. There are kids out there on the street right now, they don't know that lying, stealing, killing, adultery
because
is
they
wrong.
see the rulers getting away with it.
That's right.
The rulers control the courts
That's
and
right.
control the judges.
They're
who are
setting
member of
horrible
political parties.
examples.
Exactly.
And the examples have to come from the ground up with God's morals, starting in our families and our schools. We can do this, but Mario and I can't do this alone. And I hope the people watching this want to get behind it. They know how to get in touch with you.
Yes.
And
Do
we
those
would
chapel.
love to work as a community and change the way things are done nonviolently.
Well, that's great. We got 1 minute left, and I just want to thank you all for tuning in. I pray that you get this. You're not helpless. You're not hopeless. There's an answer for corruption. There's an answer that will give you a voice. It's called One.
One Voice Now at onevoicenow.org.
Thank you for tuning in. God bless you.
Thanks very much.
On Sunday. Wednesday's praise won't get it on Sunday. Tired? Tired? Tired of the devil kicking our butts.